Well, this is a webinar from the Open Group. This session is being brought to us by Corso, which is a very active member of the Open Group, and today's presentation is being given by Paul Banham, who's a consulting director at Corso. For Paul to start his presentation, I'd just like to go over a few housekeeping issues to today's event moving forward smoothly. With regards to questions, if you'd like to submit a question that you'd like Paul to answer at the end of his presentation, can I suggest you write that into the QA text facility? If you have a question there, can I ask you to address it to all participants, that one gets to see the questions that are being asked. If you'd like to share a comment with a fellow attendee, then probably the best way to do that is via the chat facility. Now, we'll answer as many questions as we possibly can at the end of today's presentation. This is being fully recorded, so if for any reason you have to leave early, if you experience any local technical difficulties, and I'm sorry, but sometimes people do experience some audio outages, the whole event will be available tomorrow, and everyone who's registered for today's event will get an email with an open link where they can access that recording. So if you're ready, can I ask you to start your presentation?
Welcome to today's webinar. Greetings from Australia. Now we have a lot of people joining us from many different parts of the world and obviously at different times of the day. I hope you can understand the Australian accent okay. This is Paul Banham and I'm responsible for consulting services in the Asia Pacific region. My background is I have nearly 20 years of continuous experience with a bunch of different EA products, and that is from working on the help desk to undertaking consulting to running training courses to sort of running the whole EA effort. So throughout that time, I guess what's been constant is always a interaction with the end users and what they're trying to achieve through the EA program going through, and obviously what they're trying to get out of products in delivering those EA efforts. This topic is about enterprise architecture tools for increasing business and IT agility. And for the next half an hour or so, looking at some of the concepts and functionality that assist us in achieving these goals. Just to give you some background about Corso, we're a global company with offices in the UK, the US, Australia and Canada. Being built up from a team with a very strong EA background, with members of vast experience managing and delivering EA programs, as well as being involved in the product management of traditional EA tools. So all of that once again comes back to that being at the coalface and interacting with architects and stakeholders and what they're trying to deliver, but also being at the product level where some of those compromises have had to be made based upon traditional EA tools and how they're being built and what they deliver for the end users. So what we do is we're a product company that's focused on strategic planning tools. So that sort of raises the focus a little bit from purely just EA, and we use strategic planning more as an umbrella term to cover both innovation management and enterprise architecture. So it follows the philosophy of our company tagline, which is from ideas to delivery. So we want to start right back at the idea generation period, where we're getting ideas from the organisation of ways to improve or innovate in the organisation, and take all the way through the governance and the planning that enterprise architecture gives us to deliver upon those initiatives. We also have a lot of experience around software as a service and hosting, and what that's sort of helped us to understand is some of the issues that people in getting up and running with EA tools, and just being able to provision a server and get it running quite often takes months, 6 months to actually get something up and running. And in terms of agility, that's not helping us do anything with our architecture. So being able to get something up and running in a hosted environment very quickly, quite often overnight, and being able to offset that traditional high cost of ownership, which says before we spend any money on actually architecting, we've got to go and put putting quite a healthy investment in some sort of product and all the services that sort of go into getting that set up. So we also have quite a strong professional services team internally, so strong partner networks to make sure we're including things like standard bodies such as the Open Group, which we do a lot of work with, but also consulting firms and tool vendors, so that we can see that we've got this ecosystem working, not just a sort of single point of interest. So why are we so interested in business agility and enterprise architecture? And really it comes down to being able to respond with that ability, being able to realise that what's occurring in our business is rapid, and we need to be able to respond and manage that. So, agile enterprise architecture, we've built a totally new solution from the ground up, using latest technologies that have been designed for cloud deployment. In this approach, it's meant that we have no history or pedigree that required conversion from a legacy development environment. So we've used our experience from the last 20 years to approach architecture from a slightly different approach. So we're looking at being able to do things with a rapid adoption. So we've got to be able to easily socialise our architecture tool into an organisation. If we're going to have that lead time of provisioning a server and running through training and defining standards and coming up with all these different things, we'll look months down the track before we've actually to do anything. So what we're looking at something is that's quick to learn and easy to use. If with frequent users, that they don't need to go in and spend half an hour trying to figure out how to get started. It's quite intuitive we go in and how they operate with the tool. And such as workflow management makes that really easy. We can add people in as collaborators, contributors, and they get sent an email with a link directly to the objects and a description of the tasks that we want them to work on. So we're trying to build out to involve many more stakeholders, because quite often where we get criticised in EA is that we just work and nobody's seen any of our outputs or deliverables until a long time down the track. What we're trying to do is move that stakeholder involvement to right the very start of the process, as in to innovation management, where we're actually soliciting the ideas from the wider community. So looking at concepts such as just enough architecture. So we don't need to go through and document the entire enterprise prior to actually getting started on any of our initiatives that we need to drive through the EA process. So we use concepts such as campaigns, which are focus in on different areas and different stakeholders and make sure that they're engaged in the correct format. We want stakeholders involved seeing be part of the process and see the value and progress being made, and again, not waiting until the end to see an output. It's about engagement and not putting them with a static output like a static website that they have to go off and have a look at, or a Word document. This is all about trying to achieve results quickly. We want to be able to say, in a week's time, here's something from our EA initiative. We want to be able to prove the value of it and show people that there is actually work being undertaken and give them that opportunity to get involved early on. We've recognised that as part of getting to this point, we need to change the way that licenses and packaging of these products are put together. So we're fairly aggressive price point and packaging, so it's locked into an upfront cost to purchase licenses. It's actually redirected into the actual EA effort. So the upfront cost is no longer in purchasing tools, it's in getting started in the modelling and having resources on the ground working. So let's try to get around that traditional EA tooling that's been complicated and costly. Typically you start off hiring consultants and maintaining tools to get them up and running instead of actually to do the modelling, which is where the stakeholders are interested in. An overview of our platform and what's being a little bit different. So the form is about creating a business and IT blueprint. This involves the EA artifacts and the relationships between them. So, for example, think about a business process being connected to an application component. We're just talking about those traditional EA artifacts, the relationships between them, and how we can then analyse them. This will be populated by different approaches, whether you're using an Archimate MetaModel or a TOGAF ADM approach to run through and actually do the creation of that. So what are we trying to do differently? We use things to get that stakeholder buy-in that I mentioned. So concepts such as campaigns and gamification. So is the concept that we borrowed or stole from ideas management. Campaigns are a mechanism for focusing the EA initiative. So it allows us to formally invite the stakeholders to get involved. And we're not asking them to come in and say, look, here's an entire application portfolio. We want you to pick and choose the ones that you're interested in. We can actually filter that right down and say, for this smaller group of stakeholders, I'm interested in and have some knowledge around the costings of those. So we can send a campaign to them and include them in that role of just reviewing or updating the financial details. Have another group that will go through and put in some details around maybe the business capabilities that are being provided by those application components, and another group which looks at it from a technology view. So we're not trying to eat the elephant all in one bite. We're breaking it down and providing the different groups with a structured role in how they can contribute to us. Those groups, communities, and what they allow us to do is group the users and sort of build up our little centres of excellence. Groupings can be based upon a role or by line of business. So we might have people that are involved in customer-facing activities in one community, a back office community, a community enterprise architects, or a community that's brought from the finance area. We'll utilise some agile techniques such as Kanban boards to assist us in managing work items and to drive them through a time process. Being similar to moving post-it notes through stages. So a simple Kanban can be made up of like 4 stages with things such as to-do, things that are being undertaken at the moment, things that are being completed, and a car park where we're pushing off concept artifacts or tasks that haven't yet been completed, and they're sort of creating a bit of a roadblock for us. So the Kanban is just a way of visualising the different phases that we'd like to move our concepts through. Of course, we've got our traditional sort of views of the architecture that we normally have. Our diagrams. These are our traditional model view or blueprint. Obviously here we support all of the Archimate views, but you can also visualise the concepts in different ways. And these are things like roadmaps, and we get a little interest about roadmaps around just being able to move our concepts through time and see how they're going to change, when they're going to move in and out or be active in the environment and change life cycle phases. Things such as pivot tables and charts, and quite in the past we've had to take our information back out of VA tools, back to Excel, manipulate it in there to create these sort of outputs, and then if anyone made a change, it then had to get pushed back into the tool. So what we've done is we've incorporated pivot tables and charts directly into the platform. That way, the extra step of having to do that exporting and make sure you don't lose anything in the but we've also made it really easy to do them. So it's a drag and drop job to create a brand new pivot table. And we've also changed sort of the way philosophy of how we do our documentation. So instead of leaving it to something that we do at the end and create one large document, we can document on the go. So we're sort of slide publishing, adding different diagrams or charts or pivot tables or attributes onto a report as we finish and complete them. So we're sort of building up our document as we work through it. So we've decided to we obviously needed to standardise on visualisations, and when we commenced with the building up the platform, Archimate was really just coming into its strength. So we decided to adopt Archimate to give us that visualisation in a standard format. And obviously our advantage here is that everybody able to sort of visually pick each concept. They know what an actor or a business process, an application component or a product looks like. So we're not sort of going across and having to define these standards. The Open Group's done a fantastic job of building it up, and you know, with a little bit of you know, the business is able to understand what each of these concepts looks like, and doesn't have to go back to reference charts to review them all the time. And sort of back up that visualisation, we've also adopted the Archimate model. So simply we had a standard way of saying these are the different definitions and the ways to connect them up. And I think Archimate is really strong in defining that meta model, provide all the concepts and the rules about how they should be connected. So implemented that entire meta model plus all the extensions around capability, motivation, implementation and migration. But then we've added on some additional attributes so that we can incorporate or in the work that's going on within the Open Group to harmonise TOGAF and Archimate. And at the moment we've got some of those TOGAF attributes in there. Also, quite a lot of interest around application portfolio management. So we've got attributes in there to support things such as cycles and dates, and different statuses around, you know, whether we're sunsetting things or when they're going live. And we added, just to bolster some of that support around projects and work packages, is some Prince 2 concepts. So we've stand out across there. What gives us is a out of the box, a standardised meta model that's very powerful, but it can also be easily adapted to adding your own different concepts, attributes, and relationships as required. So we're not locking you into what comes out of the box. We're trying to give you, you know, either the 80/20 rule, provide as much as possible, and you know, add those the minor capabilities that are required to suit the individual environment. We also have one of the most popular things on the website is an Archimate wall chart, so you can just download this, and I find this really good to have in my folder. Pull it out when I can't quite remember how something might connect, or I'm talking to new users and I show them the different areas. It's a real simple way of showing the whole meta model on a page and getting people to understand how it's put together. Just to dive into sort of the more of the lower level things here is and attributes, and this is really the standard across all of the EA tools. You know, we have the different definitions, we have a list of attributes that we can define in there. Instead of talking about it too much, let's jump across into the platform and have a look and see how we've implemented that. Everybody can now see the strategic planning platform, and on here is going to the view menu concepts. What this gives me is my list of existing concepts that have been defined in the platform. I can cloud platforms these days now also list down how many I want to see on a page, so a la eBay and Amazon. So determine how much I want to see in that list. I can filter things by their type, but I can also very quickly do a search here, so I can go through the sort of explorer view, and I might want to find everything that's related to a business process. Simply putting in the search up here is going to filter that back down to show those. I also want to find anything that has, for example, car in its name, type, or description. Entering that in immediately on the fly filters that down for me to show anything that has in it. So we can choose one of those, the car insurance application, simply by clicking on it. And then into my details about the enterprise architecture, in fact, the car insurance application. We can set name and details. We can add tags to it, simply dropping down and selecting a tag from the list. And once again, this helps me to go through and slice and dice later on when I'm trying to analyse my architecture. We can see different types of action here, and we can select those, whether they're dates or values, and also go down into much more complex values, such as calculated values. So in this case, we've got an attribute here which is called the application lifetime cost, and it's not a value that we've entered in. We can actually build it up based upon whether a perpetual license cost or a maintenance cost, or in this scenario, we've got a service licensing model where the average monthly cost per user is $500. We've got a total of 5 users, and we get the lifespan of this application to be 5 years. And changing any of these parameters will automatically update my calculated value up here. So I can bring this out to 7 years, and you'll see my application lifetime cost has changed, and I change my annual cost my monthly to $495, and we'll automatically go through and update those values. So I have back across here the ability to link to other definitions. So this is our relationships. So this application is used by this infrastructure service, which is the messaging service and the data access service. And so is associated with the comms business capabilities. You can immediately see not only how we describe it, but where it exists within the architecture. We could go across and do things such as connecting up links to external documents and the background information and attachments. And we sort of talked a little bit before about being able to sort of add in these collaborators. And immediately on my definition here, I can add people that I would like to be in some way involved in this application. So it could be that they are the application owner. It may be that they're the key business user, or someone who has the financial information about it because it's come through from the line of business. So we can add people in directly against here. And at any time that the application is updated or changed, they'll be notified about it. Very easy to actually tie our artifacts back to people that are, or stakeholders that are going to be involved or interested. So it's back to PowerPoint quickly here. And we very quickly touched on user roles there for a moment about how we get people involved in here. And we've taken that a step further and said, look, instead of saying everything's going to be a user or entering data about it, we've actually got some different layers of user roles predefined. First is the administrator, and that's somebody who can go in and set up the data model, create scorecards, the users, and build the system alerts. And one in traditional tools is that quite everybody would have a little bit of a go at some of these areas, or the architects would actually really enjoy customising the meta model, so they'd get trapped in that cycle of building a tool instead of being involved in actually doing the modelling and running the. So we've built that into a separate user, so that sort of sizes the role to a small group of people in setting those things up. We've got users which are traditional enterprise architects and business process modelers. They're the people who are going to be going in and defining the concepts, building models, doing analysis. Then we have the next level down, which is people which we call contributors. So they're going to be interested in dashboards and concepts and the associations, reviewing the data that's been added in, being involved via task management to go in and check something or different information, but not the entire thing, just around certain areas, and I'm seeing that read-only view. The lower level is a reviewer. So this is any user that can go in and see the data. They can still add comments and complete assigned tasks that we set for them, and still build their own publications. So they're still able to generate outputs. And really what we want to do is maximise the number of contributors and reviewers that are out there in the organisation, because the architecture team doesn't own all of this data. Just with the guys that organise it, and we may in some cases be the custodians and making sure that it's kept up to date, but we can't be responsible for all the data that's in there. There's too much work in current that's got to be shared out with the people that actually have an interest in it and are the actual owners of it, because these are business assets that we're actually building up here. In line with those different users and roles that we sort of build up as part of here, we also then use our campaigns to provide a mechanism for focusing our energies upon that subset of the architecture. Generally, what we're trying to do is meet some sort of goal or complete an initiative through our EA. We're trying some sort of change in our environment, but without documenting the entire architecture before we commence. So what the campaigns let us do is, instead of simply going in and saying, in my browser I'm going to start creating some new application components and some new business processes, is use the campaign technique to, which previously we've taken from innovation management. The campaign lets us sort of box the initiative over a specified period of time into a selected group of users. So, to give an example, we could run a campaign for rationalising the application portfolio. Campaign, we get stakeholders about the applications that they use, and this was to identify the applications that are being procured by a line of business, and then these could be added to a list sourced from IT. We can go through and say later on, as part of that campaign, we'd like some financial details to be added in, so we can set a different group of users in there, community, add to the campaign and ask them to review the financial details that we've put against there based on that lifetime cost that you saw before. So we'll look at what a campaign looks like in form. And there's ways that we can actually get to the campaigns. We'll have a look at them via a dashboard view here. You can see here I've got the ability to have a look at my own dashboard or a corporate one, or I can add my own tailored dashboard as well. So I may want to break this down into smaller areas and once again focus where I'm looking at. I can also format all of these and decide whereabouts I would like to have them displayed on the dashboard. So I've got a flexibility here in how I actually lay out the entire view. And here, which is around driving mobile, cloud and social adoption. So if we click onto that, that's down into campaign view. So within here we can very easily define what it's about, specify that this is tied to some sort of goal that we're trying to achieve, determine what types of concepts we would like to allow through this through the campaign. In this case, we're saying we'd like to be able to look at ideas, but we also change this and say, I would like to have application components that may be related to it or requirements. So it is very flexible around what it is that we're trying to elicit from our stakeholders. We've got obviously a duration here, so we can say, look, I'd like it to start on this date, and we can optionally say, I would like to run this campaign for a specified period of time. So we may say, over this, we would like to gather as much information as possible in this campaign. So once again, just focuses people on how long they have to interact with us and how quickly we want to get some of those details back. We've also in here a sponsor who's actually actually going to be responsible for our campaign, and we can see here also which communities are we going to open this up to. In this case, we've said everybody can be involved, but we can also drill down and say, I'd like to put this off a little bit and say it's only going to be for enterprise architects and those people that are in the business that are customer facing. Okay, so we can also use on here, you'll see there's a URL listing here. So what we're looking at here is really the background or the definition of our campaign. When we actually want to advertise this to the community, they're sent a link similar to what we're seeing here. Our marketing view of the campaign, and we're able to see here a more formatted view. You send to them via email, and it can be sent via task management. So they actually have a link directly to the campaign page. They're able to click on the contribute button here. So immediately I'm opening this up and saying, I would like you to come in and give me some ideas about what it is that we're working on. All they have to do is the details button, and we now added that as a new idea within the campaign. They're able to go in and add more details in there as required. Look down here. Here's my new that I've entered. What I'm able to do via gamification is actually go in and start to rate how important I think my idea is. And as it goes around the community, that whilst rating might be 3, the combined rating at the community is actually 4. So we're getting feedback, and we're starting to see what does different stakeholders think is important for us to focus on. And it's very easy to do this rating. All I need to do is hover over the number of ratings that I want to put on here. I think this one's great, so I'm going to give it 5. So immediately we've gone and added a new concept and said, for me, I find this to be really important. Putting previously, which is around providing SaaS products. So look, in terms, I think it's really only at 3 at this point in time. Easily go through and change any of our previous things. We can see on the campaign also what are the hot ideas that have been entered at the moment, and what are the top rated ones. So we see which are the ones that we think are based upon community, are getting the most interest there, and whether or not I have any details about there. So give that opportunity to go in and start saying, now's time to input into what that looks like. And we move through this process. What we're then able to do is also start to go, got our tracing these to find our most important ideas or concepts. We can use the concept of comparisons. So these are what we call pairwise comparisons. And they allow us to one idea against the other and say, which do I think is more important, this one or that one? And through the process, we end up with a list of those that have been ranked higher than others. And that, once again, goes through to all different stakeholders. So we're in here, this is once again the setup for our comparison. I can click on my advertisement for that, which is where the actual end user or contributor comes in and does the comparison here. And we see in here that when we start to compare these different things by certain criteria, and what we want to applications to a cloud provider versus providing iPads for employees, we can see which one is rated higher than the other. In this case, it's moving our current applications to a cloud provider. We're only 5 at the moment, so once again we can turn that on and show all 25, and you'll see that there's a set of each of those randomly against each other so that we get that complete view. And if we want to do any of those, it's very simple to come through and select one of those and simply through our sliding scale here, change our current value on there. You can also see down the bottom here is a quick graph to show which of these things is going to actually be more important. So once again, where are we getting the most interest from our stakeholders in terms of what do we need to look at moving forward in our priorities of change or being responsive to what the business is saying is important. I mean, in terms of our communities, we've sort of mentioned those in terms of how they operate around the campaign. And what we're really trying to do here is just build up the different groups, members with different role-based access. So we provide them with different ways of engaging with them and providing them with visibility of what we're building, and being able to ask them to come in and collaborate with us. You know, whether that's reviewing data, putting information in, asking us input into what we should be focusing on, whether that's, here's an application that we don't have in our list, they can come in and provide, or around ranking and assessment of things that have already been put in there. What that lets us sort of drill down to is being able to collaborate on our tasks, and real collaboration is the key to creating a vibrant EA practice. What we do is increase adoption of the actual function of that we're creating and being able to keep it fresh and being used. The more that data is used, the more that it's an asset. So if we can reduce the barriers to using the data and providing them with consistent information in the correct form, then it's easy for them to go in and find that, look at areas that's of interest to them, and spot where something has been outdated or changed and say, hey, I can update that very quickly. We actually make it really easy to collaborate. We can have collaborators. You saw on the concept before, I could add directly onto the concept and the role that I wanted them to play. And there are different people involved in reviewing it or filling in the attributes about it. Then each user actually has access to their own list of tasks that have been assigned, and it helps us to drive them to work through those directly. And we build up auto email notifications so that when something changes or you've been added in as a collaborator, you'll be emailed to say, hey, can you go and have a look at this? When this is actually logged into the platform, in their user menu, they've got a task manager option with a link down to the tasks that they've been assigned. So I can see that I've been assigned tasks for providing monthly employee reviews. I'm a collaborator against the financial application, and able to go in and up those details as required. So, moving on to another concept that sort of from the agile environment is Kanban boards, and Kanban are useful for bringing our EA assets to life. What they allow us to do is work on the different kinds of definitions and move them through various stages. And what it's really allowing us to do is helping to understand and organise our effort around building the architecture. So Kanban as being the vertical lanes that you can see there. These are stages which our concepts can move through, and they're used to represent things such as phases, timelines, or or statuses. And what we're seeing inside those box EA concepts. So we're seeing ideas, application components, business processes, and business capability, for example. So on the band that we can see on the screen here, it's a really simple one. And it's to work through completing tasks. So we've got one there for to do. That's what we need to do. We've got doing one, so that's what we're actually working on at the moment. The done is everything that we've actually completed. And on the left-hand side, we've got car park there, things that we can't quite complete at the moment. We don't want to get in the way of completing our critical path. So we can actually see here on the right-hand side that our administration service, the concept has been defined, the attributes have been filled out, it's been reviewed. We know whereabouts it is in the process. So different examples of Kanban that we can set up. We can have one around, for example, application portfolio management. Just to have a view of where applications are in an application realization effort. So they're whether they've been mapped for sunset or whether they're going to be candidates for cloud. We could also have a TOGAF Kanban, which would visualize the EA artifacts as the ADM is populated, and around ideas management. So we could provide a roadmap by year quarter of when ideas are likely to be released into the environment. So here's just sort of a graphical overview of what the TOGAF ADM could look like as a Kanban. Each of our different phases are being shown as the vertical columns. And we can actually drill across into the platform to see what that would look like as a Kanban that's been set up and populated with facts. So on view allows me to see a list of the Kanbans that are populated. Now in here, what the form does, it remembers the last time I went into and had a look at Kanbans, this is the one I was viewing, so back immediately into that one. If I want to see the entire list, I just list button over here, and I can view those, and can open up the improved archiving Kanban, which is the same as one we looked at before, with the working through the phases of how objects have been defined and whether they've actually been completed yet. Before we go down and have a look at this one, on the right-hand side, it says what sort of Kanban it has been based on. You can create your own and define them to have whichever columns you would like to see. So in here we can see we've got our business architecture, our architecture vision, all the way across into our technology architecture and application change management, and we can see which artifacts are actually in those phases. And we've got a control in there also to define limits as to how many objects or concepts can be in each of those before they move across into the next one. So we can actually start to look where bottlenecks might be occurring through the architecture process. We've also got across the top here smart queries, and this allows us to actually filter down an existing view, whether that's a diagram or a Kanban or a roadmap, and reduce it down to once again a subset of the data we're looking at. So this is a really good way of being able to prioritise on a particular project or initiative that's going on. So the different things in place to get more interactive with our stakeholders. I have a lot of the standard views that you'd expect in a traditional architecture tool, but we've got a few tweaks on those as well to make life easier for us around diagrams, roadmaps, charts, and pivot tables. Our diagrams are obviously it's our standard way in architecture tools. People are used to doing that in video and lots of PowerPoint, but the diagrams are our way of getting our model out there, allowing us to visualize the relationships between the various concepts. So we're around that supports each of the different architecture views across the business, application and technology views. You can also create your own custom diagrams as required. So in the platform, from view menu, we have our diagrams. To once again open up the last diagram that I was having a look at. In this case, it's a layer view, so we can go all the way from our motivation objects through into the technology layer here. Each of the here is able to move, format, and I can right-click on them to actually drill down into the details of that concept. So in this, we've got our policy data management. You can see all of the attributes in here, and we go through and change any of those directly from the diagram. We draw directly on putting concepts from the repository or creating brand new ones, or add them to the through the definition. They can also be placed onto the diagram. So depending on what sort of diagram we want to look at, we can go back to that list view, and we can see the name, type, and obviously the description there. But we can take any of those different types of views, whether it's a stakeholder viewpoint or a realisation view. All of those standard views have been defined and put in and operate in exactly the manner as one we looked at. An area that we get a lot of interest in around visualisation is roadmaps. And what roadmap lets us do is really visualise selected concepts overlaid by time. So we want to see what's happening to them in a time-based view. And what we can do with these roadmaps is can them for single dates or dates. We might want to see what's happening over Q1 2016, or I might want to see it from 2015 through to 2020 and see what's going to happen in my environment. So the roadmaps are useful to assist us to look for things that are going to be mismatched, like do we have application component scheduled to be live when hardware is not yet provisioned? Do we have application component scheduled to be live to target business goal date? So we're starting to just try and see in the events, have we missed something in our critical path to implementing our infrastructure? Have a look at a roadmap very quickly in the platform. One, view new apps, and here we can see our been configured not just to show one type of concept, but to work across things such as web packages, the application live date, the requirement start date, and an ideas implementation date. So those tools are configured in the roadmap. That's once again user definable. The red line here shows me today's date, and what's being displayed on the diagram is the different artifacts that match those the views that have been set up. Based upon the attributes that have been entered directly against the concept, they will be displayed on the roadmap for us. Okay, so long charts is something that we find a lot of interest in, especially from senior managers. They're really interested in having a look at the diagrams. They want to see a view that simply lets them say, where do I have a problem? Where should I be focusing? Where do we need to prioritize our efforts? And the charts are very easy to build up. An example of a chart, we'll have a look back in the platform. Again, view new charts. And we've got one here showing in this application portfolio value. It's very easy to define what all of the attributes are going to be and exactly what type of chart it is to be. And in here we can very quickly see that we have, and we hop over them, we can actually see what each of those is related to. In green here is technical quality. Over here we have an application which has a low technical quality, however it has a high criticality. So very quickly, instead of just seeing a list of applications, we're able to go down in and look at where we need to prioritise our efforts. So we know it's the home and away financial application. Next to have a look at is the pivot tables, and this is the area where traditionally we were taking data out of the data tool and pushing it into Excel and trying to build up the pivot table. And this is something that used to take a lot of time. So what we've done is we've built this in directly into the tool, and we take the data straight from here and publish. So pull up. So once again, we can do a search. I want to find something related to applications, and we'll see the application lifetime cost pivot table. On the left-hand side here, these are the attributes that have been defined for an application component, and all we're doing is dragging and dropping them to the right-hand side to build up our pivot table. So look how quickly we can build one of these. Specify what type of concept we're looking at. In this case, we'll stay with application component. And which concepts do you want to add from the repository? Now I can add individual ones here and select them. I can create ones or do a search, and in this case we'll most of them. So it will be a decent amount of data there. Add form, and all I need to do here is click the view button. This brings up my blank pivot table with the concepts in there. So here's the list of application components. It's pretty boring at the moment, it's just giving us a total for them. So we have to decide what we're going to put on there. So we might add in the application lifetime cost. All I need to do is drag drop that one across and add to the table. Then decide on how we might want to group these. We might use it by doing some portfolio management about life cycle status, for example. So what to do is drill down, find my life cycle status, drag and drop it across, and then I move that over my heading on the right-hand side there. I need to decide, I don't want to just see a count sitting in here. I want to be able to be a little bit more descriptive. We want to put a different value within these places. So change this to be an integer sum, and in this case we might say I want to put it here, for example, the number of users that are based upon those, and look down the list here. Well, here my users. So we very quickly flip that around to see for each component its cost, its life cycle status, and how many users are associated with that. And I can change that into a heat map really quickly by just changing which type of pivot table we're displaying. We very quickly change that instead of having a life cycle status. So if we want to take something away, once again it's simply a drag and drop. You might want to look at it by business criticality, what we were seeing in that chart before. And in this case, I want to see the technical quality sitting through here. Value. So now we're able to see, based on criticality and the technical quality, and things are related. So obviously, if we have my high column here, I'm going to be a little bit concerned about any of these that are showing a low technical quality. you'll find is that we haven't this, but down the bottom of every single visualization that we've looked at, there's a little button here that allows me to publish the view that I've just created. So clicking on that, it says I've got a list of documents, and I'm building up one around application details. I simply click on that, and that's going to publish my pivot table as I've defined it there, straight out to my application. I can either hit save, or I can just click on there to go and have a look at that. And what we'll do in here is we'll build this up as we go along. We'll add the pivot table, we'll click a diagram to add it in as we go along, we'll put some text in and keep moving through it. So it's all about publishing on the fly. We're building up the documentation as we build the different deliverables or outputs. So those off. So look, if I've studied your interest, please head on over to the website and have a look at. We've got a lot of resources and webinars recorded on there, webinars and fairly active blog as well around enterprise architecture and agility, and we'll offer free trials of the platform to get running. So I think I'll hand back over to Simon if there's any questions.
Paul, many thanks for that. Before I work through the questions on the QA facility, we have a few requests for a copy of your slides, Paul. Do you have intentions of sharing your slides?
If I shoot that through to you, you can distribute it?
That'd be fine. So if anyone would like a copy of the slides that Paul has used today, everyone will have a copy of my email. Please send a request to me, and I'll act as a go-between and share those that slide deck. Right, well, let's work through some of the questions. So starting at the top of the QA question, are communities of centres of excellence the ongoing owners of architecture as created for their areas of interest?
So you have the ability to define involvement. So in some cases they will be involved in gathering the information. In other cases they'll be put in place to maintain that as well. So when we add a community or a contributor to an artifact, we're able to define a role against there, and that role can then determine what their ongoing contribution is going to be.
Another question, as documents are created, is there a concept or a collection of living models? How are documented results of campaigns merged back into the master model? Yeah,
so when we're working through the campaigns, we're actually working directly into the model. So we're not doing a publish, we're actually provide that URL directly into the repository, bring those updates. We've added a publication ability to baseline that, because obviously in some cases we want a publication to reflect what our current status or view looks like, but we also need the ability to be able to do a refresh to say, okay, those models have changed, please bring the updated view back through. So we have the ability to do both of those.
A few more questions. Is business capability a concept itself, or a combination across the different architecture layers?
In the platform, so if we go into here, the view concepts, and we can do our my list. Capability in here is actually a defined concept. When and obviously, as I selected here, create a type with a set of values against there, and be linked up. I know there's a fantastic discussion on on one of the online forums about what a business capability is or isn't. I think we want to start that one here today.
Okay, that's great. Well, we've reached the end of our hour, so I think this would be a good time to end today's presentation. Paul, I will share with you all the questions we have on the QA facility, and I'm sure you'll be happy to respond to us offline. So this time, Paul, I'd like to thank you for your time and the presentation. I'd like to thank everyone who's attended today's event, and please keep your eye out on the Open Group website for future events coming over the next few months. So, Paul, many thanks for today, and I will end today's presentation. Many thanks.
Thanks, Simon.